984 AD. A young man and a man are training with wooden swords. Einon is not yet good with a sword, and the man teaches him. Meanwhile, they both see a very real massacre, and the man tells him that he must not forget the code when he becomes a great king. Einon sees the men slaughtering his father in a mob. He dies before his eyes, and the young man draws the crown to himself. A stranger pushes him to the bayonet, but his mentor manages to save him. Einon is brought to his mother and told the news of her husband's death. Aisling cannot figure out how to save him, but later her eyes fall on the test tubes near the bed. Einon is carried to the cave, and Aisling cries out to God. She explains to the dragon that this young man is not like his father. He will grow up to be magnanimous and brave. He is trained in the code of honor. The dragon asks the young man to swear that he will be different. Einon swears, and the dragon heals his wound with magic. He tells him to live and remember the oath he made in this cave. The knight says he will always come to the dragon's aid. Einon says that the fortress must be rebuilt to make it great again. His servants say it will take a lot of men and a lot of time, but he is willing to make such sacrifices. Time passes and Einon begins to lose his mind over the power that has fallen into his hands. Bowen reminds him of the code he taught him. He realizes that this is all the dragon's work and rides into the monster's lair. Bowen promises that he will hunt him all his life for corrupting the young man he so believed in. 12 years pass and Bowen is still hunting the dragon. He sees monk Gilbert passing by and he tells him about the dragon. Bowen runs to attack it, but the monster escapes him. Felton arrives and denies Bowen his reward because he did not swear an oath to King Einon. Felton returns to the fortress and once again offers to impose a road tax on the king, and he almost agrees. Kara's father is left blind after all, but the girl continues to go to him. Einon beats the drink for her father out of the girl's hands. She begs the mad king to let the sick old man go. 12 whole years have passed and the castle has already been rebuilt. In response, Einon draws his arrow tighter and shoots Kara's father before her eyes. In the king's opinion, death is a benefactor. The girl refuses to understand this madness and a plan of revenge looms in her eyes. Gilbert joins Bowen in his search for the dragon. Gilbert writes a ballad about him. They find on the dragon, a monk sitting right on its head. Bowen fearlessly attacks the monster, who is hiding in a cave behind a waterfall. He goes and shields himself from the monster's flames. The dragon speaks to him and then takes off trying to hide. He throws the rope and clings to the dragon's paws, but falls off his horse himself and flies with the dragon through the forest. The monster was clearly more cunning than the knight had imagined, but Bowen guessed to hook his saddle into a gap in the trees. The dragon fell to the ground, and the knight decided to attack it at once, but the monster was strong enough to fight. Parallel to the battle they managed to talk, and the dragon tells him that he is the last of the dragons. Bowen does not believe him, while the dragon speculates about his craft. Was that money really worth a dragon's entire life? He doesn't know about the betrayal that happened to Bowen 12 years ago. The knight sets a trap for him. He plunges his sword into the monster's palate, and if he closes his teeth, he dies. So they stood there until deep into the night. Bowen even managed to pull out the dead man's hand, which was stuck in the dragon's teeth. The monster offers to negotiate and gives him his word that everything will be fair. The dragon says he does not want death for the knight, much less his own death. He has an offer for the man and Bowen decides to listen to him. The dragon turns out to be very clever and sensible. The dragon flies over the fields in the middle of a bright day and burns the crops. Bowen races to Felton and asks for 2 sacks of gold for killing the dragon. He sets up a large crossbow and when the dragon flies over, he fires. The monster pretends to be struck by the arrow and falls into the water. Everyone around him rejoices, and the knight receives the gold. Such is the unusual alliance of man and dragon. The monster reminds him of the code of honor, for by his actions he deceives the peasants. Bowen can hardly believe in the code anymore and treats it as something outdated. Einon continues his carefree life. He feasts, but notices Kara in the reflection and repels her attack. The girl is taken prisoner, and she screams that he killed her father. Aisling cannot believe her eyes. Her son has grown up exactly like her murdered husband. The king visits the girl in the dungeon and tells her that he remembers who she is and that it is because of her that he has the scar on his body. He wants revenge. Bowen, meanwhile, talks to the dragon and it transpires that it is the same dragon that saved Einon, but the knight does not yet know about it. Kara stabs him in the chest and at the same time the dragon's body part lights up red, for they are bound by the same heart. The dragon sort of hints to Bowen that the young man himself betrayed the codex and his mentor, and the dragon's heart has nothing to do with it. Einon says he has an unusual heart and kisses Kara. He begs her to teach him kindness and even promises to hand over power. At night Aisling comes to Kara and helps her escape, because she can no longer bear to watch her suffer. Bowen stayed up all night and thought a lot, He decided that he would name the monster Draco, after the constellation that was in the sky that night. Draco is a dragon, but scientifically speaking. During the day, Bowen comes to the village and tries to negotiate with the people to pay him something for catching the dragon, but they have nothing, so they sacrifice Kara, who has managed to bore everyone with her speeches about Einon. The dragon picks up the girl and takes her to the water. They get acquainted, after which Bowen jumps in and says he was worried about the dragon after he disappeared. Draco hides in a cave behind the waterfall because Einon rides up to them with his men. He wants his girl back and draws his sword against his master. Bowen fearlessly attacks the underdog and he quickly loses to him, but they continue the duel. The king wounds the knight and almost kills him, but Draco intervenes and shows the same wound as the king. Einon is frightened and rides away on his horse like a coward. Kara tries to convince Bowen to lead the resistance, but he is too hardened to life and thinks the whole world is cruel. Kara slowly gives him some of the hope he once had. They pull their cunning trick again, but the pond turns out to be dry enough that Draco is left on the ground for all to see. People rush at the dragon, screaming for his meat, and the monster has to fly away, after which people rush at Bowen with the same screams. He rescues Kara and tells Gilbert, who has appeared, to hide. Bowen returns the gold to the inhabitants, but they still want bloodshed, so Draco goes back for his friend and saves them along with his horse. Gilbert is very afraid and thinks they will die, but he does not yet know the kindness of the dragon. Draco brings them to the scene of King Arthur's death. The dragon confesses that he gave part of his heart to the boy to save him, hoping it would help him become a noble king, but it didn't work out. Bowen agrees with him and says he will not be so naive again. Bowen separates himself from his friends because he does not want to participate in resisting Einon. The knight awakens in the middle of the night and sees King Arthur's glowing monolith, after which he takes his oath as a knight. It turns out that Draco set it up, but Bowen remembers the forgotten words and joins the resistance. Kara tries to convince the villagers, but they won't listen to her, but one look at the dragon is enough to make them stop doubting. Bowen trains all the villagers and also learns that Gilbert is a born warrior, as he always hits the target when he shoots his bow, even though he has never held a bow in his hands. One of Einon's men sees the villagers training and sees a dragon among them, and hurries to report to his king. Einon orders the men to train and receives a gift from his mother, the best warriors on dragons. The moment of battle is approaching. In the middle of the day an attack on the king's castle begins. Crowds of armed peasants stand at the gates of Einon, waiting for the battle. A dragon helps the peasants and shoots fireballs at the tower. The king's men can do nothing, and they have to leave the castle to fight back against the angry mob. A battle ensues and the king's men advance, but Bowen is more cunning and takes the men into the woods to take advantage. The king's men enter the woods and find themselves in a fire, which Gilbert stirs up. The knight commands and the hiding troops come out of hiding to attack the king's soldiers. Bowen notices that the people are giving up their positions and decides to dismount his horse and fight along with everyone else. Kara does well, and Gilbert, despite his pacifism, still manages to wound the soldiers, but not to kill, because it is a sin after all. Everything burns and the soldiers die, so Einon commands a retreat. Bowen shouts for Gilbert to stop the king and he fires an arrow, saying "Thou shalt not kill," and hits Einon in the heart. The king doesn't die from the wound, but the dragon, which is connected to him by a heart, is seriously hurt and falls right on top of the castle. The dragon hunters quickly react to this and bind Draco. Einon orders that the dragon not be touched, he needs him alive and unharmed. Forever. None of the inhabitants dare go out to save the dragon, so Bowen and his friends go out alone. In the middle of the night, Aisling comes to Draco and kills the guard she herself gave to Einon. She apologizes and speaks to the dragon. He did this for Einon, not only to get into dragon heaven, but also to rid humanity of tyranny. Aisling apologizes to Draco and nearly kills him, but her spear is grabbed by Einon and he says he immediately guessed her plan. She hired the best hunters to kill the dragon and thus kill the king. The mother says she only wanted to correct a mistake she made 12 years ago. Einon thinks this is too cruel, so he grabs a spear himself and goes to his mother. He kills the unfortunate woman, and the dragon lets out a great howl. Bowen hears the dragon's cry and speeds up his pace. The peasants join him, now many of them, but they are already waiting for Einon. Bowen confronts his apprentice and drives himself and him underground to fight one-on-one. Kara, meanwhile, confronts Felton in the dungeon. The man nearly kills her, but Hugh saves her and kills Felton. Before 5 minutes pass, Kara stumbles upon the king's second servant, but this time she kills him by slashing through his flesh with a huge axe. Einon and Bowen's clash moves to the roof, and the latter almost gives up his position, but Einon finds himself at the bottom. Bowen learns the bitter truth: to kill Einon, he must kill the dragon. He once promised him that he would fulfill any promise. Bowen refuses, for it is so hard to kill someone you love and consider your friend. Einon appears out of nowhere and is about to kill Kara. Bowen then decides to do the most desperate thing of all. He throws an axe into the dragon's ajar scales, striking him through the heart. Einon dies with the dragon. The villagers come running and watch the dragon die. Draco was the last of his kind, so what will happen now? What will they strive for? But Draco gives no answers. He dissolves into thin air and says he will drift away to the stars like any other noble dragon. A dragon's paradise awaits him, for he was an honest and good dragon, with a good heart. His soul soared to the stars and completed the picture of the constellation, after which a dragon of tiny stars loomed in the sky. Those were the golden days, after which Draco's golden star is left in the sky and they know where to look for it.